Oh, wow. Well, Leo, thank you. Uh, with all those readings, I kind of trip out. That's really a lot of readings. How you get people to do their readings, I don't know. Yeah, Frankie, I'm an addict. Put myself under time. A sponsorship. I can share on sponsorship. I've done it really badly for quite a period of time, and I've also done it fairly well. So, well, the people I've sponsored, they've done well. So, the point of being that, I do need to. Uh, I do need to share a little bit about the beginning, and I've kind of realised that where I've been sharing over a period of time, and asked to do chairs and that, I kind of do a little bit of a disclaimer. I really don't know what that's about. I've got my sponsor can't help me with this one. I need to get some help off someone and ask them about it. And why I do this disclaimer, because I will talk about drugs. I'll even talk about smoking if you like. I'll talk about inappropriate behaviour in meetings. I'll talk about all the things which are based in my experience. Once did have somebody say to me, I don't agree with your experience. And it's like, my experience is what happens to me when I go to meetings. So there's some things I've learned which other people disagree with. And in my little journey, I'll try not to talk too much about the beginning or before NA or my thinking before NA, but I try to do it just so we get this identification we talk about, because otherwise we sit and go, I use drugs, you use drugs. I came here because my life was unmanageable. And then when I come here, I turn around and I say, actually, it wasn't unmanageable. I've come here to stop using drugs and all that kind of stuff. But some of the things I learned when I first came to Narcotics Anonymous, it was in prison in 92, and I attended as many meetings as possible, as well as the mothership AA. I didn't have a fondness for AA. I kind of stuck to addicts are kind of more the people I gravitate towards. I've done the other addict fellowship. I've done my time there. And it took me basically 10 years to get myself to that place where it says in the How It Works card, if you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready. Up until then, it was partly lip service, partly avoidance of the outside world, something to do that didn't cost anything. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the film Fight Club, where Marla says, he says to her, why'd you go to meetings? And she says, it's cheaper than the cinema and the coffee doesn't cost anything. It's like, yeah, I get that. I spent 10 years doing that. And if you're really nice and you're really skilled with manipulation, addicts give you shit. Addicts have no social skills. So what they do is when they want to be your mate, they give you something. I do it all the time. I've had to learn to evolve. So that was the beginning bit. But something I learned, they used to say to me in early days, you need to sit with it. And then I realised after I went to treatment 8 times, that was treatment speak. Because any real addicts that I met, if you told them they had to sit with something, before you knew where they are, they'd took the television apart. Or, they'd be fucking, you got to sit with it. You just broke up with your bird. You let them sit with it for 2 hours. Next thing you know, they're throwing rocks at her window going, you fucking get out here. It's like, I've learned, I don't tell people, oh, you're having a feeling, your cat's died, sit with it. I don't tell them to endure it. I tell them, go to a meeting, do a reading, phone another person. Even if you feel that desperate, go out on the street and shout obscenities at someone if you want to. Just get through it. And that's the things I've learned. The other thing I learned was from the mothership, not to do. And that was, they say, think, think, think. Think, think. That's all I fucking do. That's all I do is think. Does she like me? Does she not like me? I wonder if she's noticed me. I wonder if I should send her a text. Should I not send her a text? And I can torture myself with all this insanity. Total insanity. Obsession, they call it. Yeah, I think the other thing is as well, there's a quote I heard off someone, and I'm going to quote a lot of other people because nothing I say is original. I've just picked up stuff as I go along the way. And when I look to the right or your left, I'm checking the time. I've got a clock there. Yeah, I kind of learned stuff on the way. One of the things I learned from a recovery share was somebody said, don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And I had to really think about that and take that on board. And another one that I heard, which really served me well in the early days, was if you want to get fucked, you got to get in position. Now, I was thinking that was sexual when I first heard that. I thought, yeah, of course, you've got to go to the NA parties, ain't you? If you want to get yourself sorted, that's where all the magic happens, you know. But no, they meant something else, you know. The old saying, like, if you want a haircut, go and hang out in the barber shop. You know, there's all these kind of, you know, say what you mean what you say. In other words, you come into NA, pick up a white key ring. We generally say, do you want a new way of life? I have to change my old way of life to a new way of life. And in the Just for Today card, it says, you know, my thoughts will be on people who are not using and who have found a new way of life. Took me 10 years to hear that. So I start off on this journey, 2003. I've been around a while. My sponsor says to me, we're going to do set work. We're going to do it in a routine. We're going to do it in a ritual way. When the Living Clean book came out a few years later, I realized it says in the Living Clean book, ritual is also spiritual. It's part of being spiritual is having rituals. Addicts are good with rituals. That's why we're habitual. You know, it's like rapping, doesn't it? Habitual, ritual, spiritual. It's just that thing of, I've learned routines. Routines are healthy for me. They work. So with doing a routine of 30 minutes a day with my first step 4, within 30 days, I'd finished it. I find people sitting in meetings going, I'm 2 years clean and I'm doing my step 4. And I think, you can't be. You can't be doing your step 4. What you mean is you put it under the bed and you're telling everyone that you're going to do it. And it's not about me judging them. It's just that that's what I did with my first step 4. I took years to do it and then I kept relapsing. And then when I got a new sponsor, I'd say to the sponsor, is it all right if I read my old step 1 to you? Because I didn't understand anything around sloth, laziness, that kind of egocentric, I'm too good to do writing. I don't want to do writing. I didn't go to school. Is there any other way? Can I tell you about this? Is there any other way we can do this? I was so lazy with all that stuff. But then when I got to that place in 2003 and I started doing this routine, the step work started to become easy and I went through the step work fairly easy. And to kind of cut a long story short, I then went through the step work again to look at Frankie while he was clean. And, you know, I had some awakenings. In the sense that I didn't really know how to deal with life. Now, my mum used to say to me, I wish you'd grow up. And that's confusing because I was a single parent bringing up a young girl. You know, I've now got 2 beautiful grandchildren. And I didn't really understand what she'd mean. You know, I was very immature, very, very immature. So through the step work, I started to kind of straighten out. I started to realize that I play a part in everything. Nearly everything I do, I'm involved with. I started to learn this thing of, if I'm angry at something you do, you might be acting like a bit of a prick, but I need to look at why I'm angry because I'm powerless over you. That's just basic step 1 stuff. I'm powerless over people, but what comes up for me, I have a part I play in it. Now, don't try this with normal people because I went up to my mum and I saw my mum all bent out of shape. She wasn't talking to the woman up the road. She'd fallen out with her. They swap apricots. And when it comes through the season, I'm like, Mum, your pride's in your way. She's like, well, I tell you what, you need to get out of my way because I ain't listening to none of your bullshit. And my mum's laying it down on me. So I don't go spilling this stuff out at the normal people. I don't start saying, Mum, you're powerless over people. She'll come round to you eventually. I don't start any of that. I have to take it on board. What does Frankie need to do for Frankie? Sometimes I have to say to myself, and for me, this is a form of prayer. Sometimes I have to say, Frankie, what is your problem? What is your problem here? You know, I really have to get into that and find out what is the problem, what's the exact nature of this wrong here, and I have to run it past someone. I can't always phone my sponsor because he's in America and sometimes during the day. So I've learned in NA, it's a wee program. I've kind of built up a recovery network as such of people I can talk to. You know, there's a great group of people I meet on a Sunday night. We're recovering addicts and we basically chat, but it's a support. I need the help of others. Otherwise, I start seeing it's like how Frankie sees it, what I believe it should be. I need to get a balance, and it's all about a balance. And the biggest learner for any of this for me was when I started sponsoring. Because when I started sponsoring, I made a lot of mistakes. When I first started sponsoring, I was so chuffed to be sponsoring this guy from Camden Town. He's not around there anymore. He moved to Ireland, this guy. I was so pleased. What I did was I was on benefits. So I said to him, right, you need a book. Have you got a book? And he was like, no. So we went to an NA meeting in Crouch End. The basic shows how long ago this was. The basic text was £8. I couldn't really afford it. I wasn't shoplifting anymore. I was trying to be brutally honest. And I bought him a book. He said, thanks, Frankie. Will you sign it for me? So, yeah, fucking, I signed his book for him. The next day, he rang me up and said, I ain't doing recovery no more. Can't be bothered with all that, listening to all the piss and moan. And he fucked off. And I thought, I want my £8 back. And I said to him, give us me book back. He went, oh, when I see you. And it was like, I did that again, though. I had someone else who was wanting a book and I was on benefits. And I was like putting, whether it was £1 in the pot, I had me 45 quid, you know, I was so wanting to go out and earn myself some money. I was doing a little bit of fly work on the flower store in London just to bump some money up. And I was unmanageable. I didn't even know. It wasn't until I got really deep in it with my sponsor that he pointed out to me, Frankie, you know, to become manageable is in all areas of your life, you know. It's not just about being unmanageable around your thoughts and your feelings, like in the early step work. It's about planning and being manageable around your income. It's like money I donate to meetings. I have to make sure that I put a little bit of money aside and it's the right amount of money. Because I went through the mistake of putting in too much money. I'd earn some extra money, put too much money in. I didn't realize, you know, recovery's progressive. You have to accumulate and it's just for today and you carry on. And eventually I got to this place where I got this guy who wanted me to sponsor him. And it's a bit of an awkward story because it comes all about me again. But he asked me to sponsor him and I said, yes, I'll sponsor you. And he was really willing. He went and bought his own step working guide, which was something I didn't do. I went through the basic text first and then went to the step working guide. But he went and bought a step working guide, and I thought by this time, just as long as I get a fucking sponsee, then everyone will know I'm well if I've got a sponsee. There's nothing better than sitting in a meeting going, oh, yes, I was speaking to my sponsee earlier. You know, really, my ego had just fucking ballooned right up. So this guy gets a step working guide. He starts doing the work, and we start going through. Well, we're just about to start doing the work. And I thought, well, shit, I haven't told my sponsor. You know, I've got to get a bit of kudos here. So I ring up my sponsor, it's called Alan at the time. When I ring him up, I go, Alan, I've got a sponsee. And he says to me, how clean are you? I said, I'm 2 years clean, Alan. I've got a sponsee. And he says to me, no, I was actually a year clean. I made a mistake there. I was a year clean. And he says to me, you can't sponsor anyone. You're still powerless. I was like, what do you mean I can't sponsor anyone? I'm itching to sponsor. I'm itching to show you guys, the rest of the world, that I'm the best recovering addict. I've been at it 10 years. I've been to treatment 8 times. I've been this, I've been that, and everything else. I had service commitments. I'm attending NA on a regular basis. I need to be super sponsor. And he says to me, I can't. My sponsor, I'm thinking he needs to go. Sponsor needs to go. This fucking ain't happening. He said to me, you still smoke. You're powerless. You're powerless over tobacco. Whilst you're powerless, you can't. I got bent out of shape. So I thought, fuck. I said to him, if I stop smoking, can I sponsor him? He said, if you stop smoking, but you haven't, have you? I was like, this guy learnt his recovery in prison on the rap scheme, so he was a little bit of a bastard. I thought he was a bit brutal. He wasn't kind, like my new sponsor. He was, he was a bit. He said things I didn't like, so it was like I went and bought this book by Alan Carr called "How to Stop Smoking." My sponsor told me to spend my own money on it, no one else's, just mine. So I went up to, I was going to say Witherspoons. No, it's the one that sounds like Witherspoons. I went up there, didn't steal the book, bought the book, come back, read half of it on the Saturday morning. It was complete bollocks. I rang my sponsor up and said to him, I don't like this. I don't believe in this. He says, but you haven't had a fag all morning, have you? And I was like, you're right. He says, well, put yourself on a 5-minute basis. You know the trick. The first one does the damage, all bets are off. If you'd had a fag today, you can't. You stop. You have to start again on your next clean time after you've slept. You know, as it says in the step, it says, we admitted we were powerless and our lives have become unmanageable. I often wonder why I had lives and not life. So I stopped smoking that weekend. My sponsor allowed me to sponsor this guy. I took him through the 12 steps and not much happened. I started going around meetings saying to people, well, he needs to do what I did. I haven't, you can't try and transmit what you haven't got. And he needs to get himself a sponsee. Well, this guy just carried on. He didn't get a sponsee. He carried on attending meetings. He was more interested in learning about shiatsu than doing anything else. But he still went to meetings. He was in a little clique in this recovery group, and he wanted to be a DJ as well. And he went off and did his own thing. He's still clean today, and he's got a life, and he's doing really well with his life, and that's really cool. I'm friends with him now. I don't sponsor him anymore. I'm friends with him. And then all of a sudden, on the sponsorship trip, another guy came along, and I'm not really sure at this time whether he was the 6th or the 7th person. He seems like the 2nd person that I sponsored that I was successful with. And he was a Scouser. He was from Liverpool. And I didn't want to sponsor him. We just started a meeting in London. The meeting was starting to be successful. People were starting to come to the meeting. I was not, I was kind of into the service. London Convention was coming on. I was focusing on doing programming for London Convention. And I was just in my own little world. So I didn't want a distraction of someone who's going to be hard fucking work. And this guy came up to me and he said to me, you're going to be my sponsor. And I was like, no, mate, come back and see me in 30 days. When you get 30 days clean, come and see me. And he fucked off, and I thought, result. Because normally, if you want to, it's a bit like a committee meeting, yeah? Let me drop a tip here for the committee meeting. If you're in a committee meeting and someone says, I want to call a group conscience, okay, and you say, what do you want to call a group conscience about? And they say, I want to change newcomers' time to 30 minutes. You go to them, that's a really good idea. The business meetings at the end of the month, come along then. My experience, because we used to have this every week, we used to have a couple of women who used to come to the group, and they always wanted to call a group conscience because their meeting was Brixton, and they always wanted to call a group conscience in the middle of the meeting. We used to tell them to come to the business meeting, and guess what? We'd have the business meeting, and they wouldn't turn up. So the same thing with sponsees. When someone asked me if I'd sponsor them, I'd say to them, send me a text with your phone number on and come and talk to me when you're 30 days clean. That would get rid of them. It was fucking great. It really worked well. So I'm carrying on, forgetting my life, carrying on, booking in these, trying to get celebrity people to come and speak at this new home group I'd created. 30 days later, this guy stands up in front of me and he says to me, "You're my sponsor." And he's smaller than me, aggressive as fuck. And I thought, I'm a bit scared of this cunt. I said to him, "All right then, well, text me your number and give me a phone call at 6 o'clock." He did everything I said. He did everything I said, this guy. Fucking drove me bananas. He did everything I said. I said to him, "Look, there's a reading in the Narcotics Anonymous basic text that's in every single edition of the basic text. It's our equivalent to how Bill sees it, but we're not like the alcoholics. We don't make someone important. But this meeting's in every single one. It's the same kind of deal. It's called I Found the Only NA Meeting in the World. I want you to read it, highlight the bits you relate to, and we're going to talk about it on the phone." He was like, "Well, I'll come and meet you." And I was like, "Okay." I'm thinking, well, how can I make this guy fail? I said, "I live in Crouch End. Just moved into this new flat. I was being really flash." He lived in Camberwell, which is the other side of London. I said to him, "I'll see you 6 o'clock." And he was like, "Okay." He turned up at my house 6 o'clock. I've now learned, don't have sponsees around your house. I've learned that. You know, that's taken a bit of time. Not at least till they get to a year clean. That's another story entirely. But this guy, he turned up. We went through the reading. He highlighted it. I thought, I'll have him on the step 4, this one. So I got him to do a step 4. I got him to do the step 4 out of green and gold. I got him to do a life story. I got him to do a load of columns. I got him to write down a list of all his thoughts and fears, a list of all his assets, anything I could think up of what I've done. Then I had a brainwave. The little brown book, working step 4 in Narcotics Anonymous. I thought, no fucker ever does this. I hadn't even properly done it myself. I said, "Here you go." I nearly said his name then. I said, "Here you go. Answer all the questions in that." And it's a real confusing book. He answered all the questions in it and came back. I thought, I can't get rid of this geezer. So I take him through the step work and things start to change. He starts to open up and he starts to take a risk. Now, I realise when I've done my step work in the past, I've been a bit mechanical with it and I've been matter of fact, time and date and place and how I thought and how I felt. With him, he started to take a little bit of a risk. And I started to see this guy actually change and his attitude started to change. And I started to have something happen to me, which happens to people in NA, but I'm a bit late in life. I'm like coming up to, over 3 years clean at this point. And what had started to happen was I started to get some compassion. Mainly, I started to get some empathy. He was telling me some things and it was like choking me up. This guy, he'd had a hit put out on him by his family and stuff like that. He was actually not in a very good state of mind. And besides the little twang of guilt I felt, because I made him work really hard to get it, he put the effort in. And one of the things I want to throw into this, and that is, this is totally diverse, but it's about sponsorship. There was a different guy I was sponsoring, and he had a sponsee who he was taking through the steps. Now, the sponsor started using, but he kept taking the sponsee through the steps. And that sponsee went through the 12 steps while his sponsor was using, and he's still clean today and got a good life. And it's the same thing of what I learned. There wasn't any shit treatment centres. It's like there isn't any bad meetings. It all boils down to how much effort do I put into this? If I want to be a good sponsee, I have to make the effort. I have to phone up. The hand of sponsorship's only going to reach out and go, I'll help you, but I have to make the effort. It's the same of being a sponsor. If I want to be a good sponsor, I have to be involved. I can't be talking to people out the side of my mouth. If someone hasn't rung me for 2 days or they've missed checking in, as we used to call it, I'll give them a phone call. How hard's that? What am I? No, they haven't phoned for 4 days. You know, they could be lying in a pool of their own piss. You know, it's like, no. Ring them up. Are you all right? Little trick with sponsorship. When you sponsor someone, say to them, like, for example, when they're doing their step 2, this step work you've got, when do you think you'll have it finished by? And they normally say, oh, it's like, now it'd be like May. They'll say, oh, I'll have it done by June. So you go, okay. Then that gives you a really good tool, because next time you speak to them, you go, how are you doing with your step work? And they go, oh, well, I've done a couple of questions. And you say, well, you said you'd have it done by June. And then if they go past June and it comes to July or whatever, you say to them, when are you gonna, do you want to give me a deadline for when you'll get this done? Don't waste your time. You know, I'm here to help you. Because what happens is a lot of distractions in Narcotics Anonymous. There's lots of pretty women. There's new meetings to go to, especially now with all the Zoom online stuff. You can Zoom all around the planet, can't you? You can go to Brooklyn. You can go to Texas. You can go to Thailand. Ask anyone in Thailand if they know Ash. They all start nodding. Makes you wonder, that one. But, you know, it's like there's loads of different, you know, things you can do on Zoom. It's like, it's great. You don't have to stay in your own area. We have a thing at the moment. There's a couple of things that piss me off in NA. And I'm going to say this. One of the things with the Zoom things at the moment is people go, I don't like people. I live in Bath. They go, I don't like the other members of Bath. So I'll go to Brooklyn and I'll listen to a real message. And I'll put those people in the same category as those people who come into meetings. You know, when you're in a real life meeting and you're sitting there and they come in and they say, I need to share first because I've got to leave. Because I often sit there and think, what's the fucking special about him? What magical words is he going to drop on us lot to save us? You know, all that I want to share first because I have to leave. It's like, jog on. You know, they drive, you know, it's like I've been in NA a while and there's some things that grind my gears. But also there's some things it's like, make an effort. You know, it's that thing of I've learned with sponsorship to be really, really careful on who I engage with, because sometimes you can be really nice to a person and they're codependent. They want to grab onto you and they want you to sponsor them. They follow you about the place. It's kind of, you got to lay the rules down. And I try to sponsor people who may benefit from my experience, who are similar to me, who may have gone through stuff that I've gone through. You know, when I first came to NA, I realised I got on my timer. I've got about 2 minutes left. When I first came to NA, I remember sitting in a meeting. I mean, this is really early days when I came out of prison in '94. And I knew nothing about addiction. I knew nothing about the illness. What I knew about was using. I used to have my little joke. I used to say, I'd used heroin for 27 years, but we don't state what drugs it is. I started smoking early. I started smoking at the age of 8, you know. And then I used to say, well, I was a bit of a late starter, really. And then the other thing what I used to go on about was how much carnage and damage and the flats I'd lost and the girls had got pregnant and where I'd been shoplifting. And I'd tell people about how clever shoplifter I was because I knew about foil bags and shortwave radios and how to embezzle money. And I used to share all that madness in meetings and all that nonsense and tell you what's going on for me. Well, I never really got clean. I never was able to, until it wasn't until I started sharing, you know, and learning to share about what I do in step work, how I do this recovery, that I only keep what I have by giving it away. Did I start to move forward? And I started to learn to a certain extent over a period of time that I need to really, really focus on what I do. And I got sidetracked slightly there, mid. But my sponsor, when I first asked him to sponsor me, when I got to 4 years clean, I said to him, Mickey, will you sponsor me, please? And he said to me, of course I will. I only sponsor sick people. And I was really offended by that, because I was still in that place where I didn't know what an addict was. I didn't know what the illness of addiction was. Oh, that's what I was going to tell the story quickly before I leave. 1 second left. I went to this treatment centre. I went to this NA meeting, first NA meeting. There was a Scottish guy sharing. And he shared, right, that he'd stuck, and this is a language only addicts would know, and especially if you're from Scotland. It totally intimidated me. He shared that he'd stuck 200 jellies up his bum, and he'd passed that, and they couldn't get him out, and all the other recovering addicts were having to lick his bum to get off their heads. And I just sat there with my mouth open thinking, I can't top that. In all my 27 years of using the gear, I can't top that. I thought I'm not going to do too well in this NA game. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you.